disruption. One of the things we'll be covering today as we talk about managing emotions and mindset during disruption is, well, first of all, why do we feel the way we do, and why should we need to control it, and how to manage emotions and mindset. So for those of you who have never seen me before, my name is Erin Urban, or Coachy Urban. Now there's a story behind that really quick. I do not think like I'm that awesome. When I was in corporate, I led some teams, and those teams, because I had a coaching mindset as a leader, called me Coachy Urban or Coach Urban. So that's where it comes from. I'm a behavioral scientist, career strategist, certified leadership coach, certified emotional intelligence coach, and a certified strengths assessment coach in extended disc. Whew, that's a mouthful. So I leverage neuroscience and behavioral science as well as social psychology to make sure that my clients get great results and that I can deliver webinars like this one. So let's get started. All right. First thing first. Why do I feel so anxious? My client called me the other day and she said, Erin, why do I feel so anxious? This is not my normal state of being. I do not understand why I'm feeling so anxious and stressed and just fatigued and stressed out. And I said, okay, it's not you. She's like, you sure it's not me? No, it's not you. It's perfectly normal. In fact, this is our natural human response, particularly to massive disruptive events like the one we're experiencing right now. This is natural. It's based in science. So what I'd like to do is have a quick poll. So let's see, what are you feeling? So you should see a poll that asks you, what are you feeling right now that is not your normal, like, go-to emotion? What are you feeling right now? Take a few moments to just answer as many as you like. And so far we've got, let's see, we got 4%, 10%, we're getting there. So again, it's very normal to feel emotions that you are not used to feeling. This is perfectly understandable. And guess what? It's not you. There's not anything wrong with you. It is a very stressful time. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and something called VUCA, which I'm sure many of you have heard about. So we've got a few more people coming in, and we're going to go ahead and end the voting. And let's see what the results are. So what are you feeling? We have, most people are feeling frustrated and difficulty focusing. So frustration, difficulty focusing, that is perfectly understandable. And I'll share with you something. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of something called neuroplasticity, but it's our brain's ability to adapt. And what's interesting is, converse to historical trends where we thought that our brain's ability to adapt and change, particularly like our mindset and our personality, was fixed at a young age. That is not true. In fact, scientists have found that we can have and enjoy neuroplasticity until quite advanced age. 80 some years old, as long as we're healthy of mind and body. So what that means for you is, ladies and gentlemen, being neuroplastic, that's a word, enjoying neuroplasticity is both wonderful and actually gives hope for humanity, and it also takes a lot of energy. So let me give you an example. Your routine that you're used to, going to work, commuting, dealing with Houston traffic, all that is your normal routine. That is probably a habit that is in your brain. You don't even have to think about it. Well, guess what? We're no longer in our habit zones. We're out of our comfort zones. We're working in different environments. We're trying to deal with our spouses, pets, and kids all at the same time and work. And we're cohabitating with our spouses for the first time, or co-working and trying not to kill each other, whatever that looks like. And then you have the introverts who are probably loving this and the extroverts who are going crazy. So we're outside of our comfort zone, which means we have to create new ways of thinking, which takes energy. So you see where I'm going with this? So if you feel fatigued, that is one reason why. So it's not you. It is the fact that you are outside of your comfort zone. You're under a lot of stress due to emotional contagion. So those of you who checked yes to anxiety and frustration and fear and stress, that's emotional contagion. And we'll talk about that in here in a minute. So it is a fact that, let's see, this is interesting. Okay. It is the fact that You're a human being, and it's okay. It's not you. So let's get started into our next section. Your mindset drives your success. Well, it's easy for me to say that, but what do I mean by that? Because we kind of know that our mindset is important, and we kind of know that it drives our success. I can't hear. There's no sound. My sound is on, so it could be. Let's see. And I have full charge, so it could be potentially a connection on your end. So just check that connection really quick, and it might be a connection on your end, but we're good on this end. So your mindset does drive your success. And why is that? Well, basically our mindset is a collection of habitual ways of thinking. And to give you an example, we're seeing two distinct different mindsets becoming very prevalent, particularly during this pandemic, particularly right now. And one of those mindsets is something called scarcity, and the other one is called abundance thinking. Now, your scarcity mindset people, they're the ones that are responsible for the fact you can't find any toilet paper or hand sanitizer because they're hoarding. They are driven by fear. Instead of focusing on what they can control, they're focusing on what they can't control, and they tend to extrapolate, jump to conclusions, and catastrophize. Okay, so instead of focusing on what they can do with what they have, they are focusing on all the negatives, right? So on the other hand, you have your abundance thinkers, your abundance mindsets. And those people are more concerned about the community, the impact on their family, how they can collaborate with others. They're concerned about how to overcome the situation, how to find a plan, how to make a way, how to make the best out of what they have. So you see the difference between those two mindsets. Now, sometimes we can kind of be over here or over here, just depending on how we're feeling that day or what happened. And that's perfectly fine. But just know that those two mindsets are very, very, very poignant right now. So for some of you that can actually hear this and are not having connectivity problems, you might want to, let me just pause one moment and answer some of the chat for those people who cannot hear. You can't hear. Oops, it helped if I could type. Right, you can. Back in. If you can't hear, you can log in, log out, log back in. If you have experience of technical difficulty, sometimes that resets it, whatever's going on. So I know networking issues are happening, and that's a part of our challenge right now. So just chatted about scarcity versus abundance. So I'd like to ask you a question, and you can ask yourself. Are you withdrawing from your future, or are you investing in your future? Because those people who have scarcity mindsets are withdrawing from the future, trying to mourn the past or what it was or things they can't control. And those with abundance mindsets are investing in their future. They're seeing this as not necessarily an opportunity, but they're trying to make the most out of what they have, if that makes sense. So let's see. And there's a lot more behind this, by the way. And one of the things I'm not trying to get into in this particular session is all the technicalities and the science behind why your mindset is important, because quite frankly, that would be a whole nother webinar. And I am launching a mindset masterclass, and I do go into those details, exactly why your mindset is so important. And I will talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So let's see. What I know for sure is anyone can manage their emotions and drive a more powerful mindset. And the tools by which to do so are very easy. And leaning on your support group will increase impactful results. So let's get started into what we'll talk about today. So we'll discover the real reasons why we respond the way we do during disruption. We'll also reveal how our emotional awareness empowers more impact and influence. And we'll also develop simple yet significant strategies to manage our emotions and our mindset. Now, for those of you who can hear me, will somebody please put in the chat box that they can? Because, okay, using service can see and hear just fine. It could be your browser as well. So some people can hear. Great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because as far as I know on my end, I'm good. Unlike yesterday, where I wasn't good. and that's the world for you. It's interesting in times like these where it becomes very apparent about what we can control and what we can't control. And just know that if you can't hear this session or something goes wrong, that I am recording and I will send it to you. Okay, so don't worry, I will send it to you. We'll focus on what we can control. So let's get tucked right into the first section, discovering the real reasons why we respond the way we do in mass panic situations like we do right now in this pandemic. So the number one reason is VUCA, which stands for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. Now, this term was actually coined in World War II by the military. And because at that time it was very much volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And what's interesting is while some of us do remember stories from that time, many generations have not experienced a pandemic or a situation to this magnitude. We have two distinct generations that will be very impacted, not saying that all the rest of us are not impacted, but even more impacted. It will drive a lot of the future events moving forward. And those two generations are Generation Y, or millennials, and Generation Z. So those two generations, this to them is unprecedented times, because for them, they maybe didn't have, grandparents telling them or who had experienced World War II. So let me know if you can relate to that. So what happens when we experience VUCA? Well, one of the things that happens is stress. So if you're feeling stressed and frustrated, that is because we are in uncertain times. You can't plan very well in uncertain times. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Your brain likes to have all the answers. In fact, as early as the age of 5, we have trained our brains to come up with answers. So that's one reason why it's very easy for us to jump from little to no data to foregone conclusion that fast. It's because our brains like to find the answer, even if it's the wrong answer. So therefore, in order to avoid making poor decisions, what I would suggest as a solution is become comfortable with not knowing and focus on what you can control and what you do know. Now, this is easier said than done. It's a lot more difficult, because when I first started practicing this, because I'm a rampant planner, like an obsessive planner, and I have to have not only the main plan, but a backup plan for that backup plan. Letting go of having to have all the answers isn't easy. Mindfulness and deep breathing exercises and being aware helps tremendously. Just knowing that, okay, my brain is trying to find all the answers, because we like to have control. And right now I don't have control over very much except myself and my response to the situation. So what I recommend is, first of all, knowing that, and then making sure that you are not trying to focus on things you can't control, or, focusing on scarcity, right? Plan the best you can with what you have. And also very important, when you make a decision with the information that you have, let go of the outcome. Because sometimes we can't control the outcome. We can do the best we have with what we best we can with what we have, but then unattach yourself from the outcome. That's very, very important. And there's a reason why I say that, because it's too easy, particularly if you have any sort of perfectionist tendencies at all, to beat yourself up when outcomes don't come out the way we wanted them to. Okay, so let's talk about the next item on our list, and it's called emotional contagion, as I mentioned earlier. Now, this literally is our ability as human beings to catch emotions from other people. So when we have mass emotional responses to situations like this, you will be impacted. Now, what's also interesting is you'll be more affected the more empathetic you are. So those of you who consider yourselves very empathetic people, you're probably very affected. So let me know in the chat box if that holds true for you. If you feel like right now it's even more than maybe some of the people you observe, if they're in their family. I know my husband, my spouse, he's a wonderful man, but he's not super in tune with people. He's a deep introvert, and he's so happy That's not necessarily true. Actually, he does enjoy working around other people. It's more efficient and he enjoys his colleagues, but he's not a person that has to be around a lot of people. So for him, he's not as emotionally impacted as someone like me. And it's very difficult for me to stay focused and not let the mass emotional response to a situation impact my emotions as well. So if you're feeling stressed, frustrated, anxious, panicked, etc., for no logical reason, that's why. It's emotional contagion. Now, what can you do about this? Well, number one, it's important to note that it's incredibly fast, is completely normal, and it's centered in our primal brain. So it's an automatic response system. The first thing that you can do about it is be aware. Simply be aware that it is happening. That is very important. Now, the other thing you can do is take periodic breaks throughout the day. Now, this is very important. You want to take periodic breaks throughout the day for multiple reasons. And those reasons will be because number one, you need to give yourself a break, because right now, not only are you creating new neural pathways, you are also in a dissimilar environment. So you're out of your comfort zone. You are also probably doing a lot more what we call task-centered work. So with that part of our brain, that task-centered part of our brain is probably on a lot more of the day than it perhaps would be normally, because we're in habits, in our routine, in a comfort space, at least that we're used to. Even if you don't like the people you work with, you're used to it, okay? So with that being said, that task-centered part of our brain is being leaned on a lot harder. And it's very similar to a computer in that, I don't know if you've ever noticed, but if you ask a computer to do a lot of tasks, like for example, listen to this webinar on a bad internet connection, for example, it will heat up and you'll hear the fan cut on trying to cool it down. I'm not trying to say our brains heat up, but our brains do get fatigued. So particularly in situations like this, I would ask you to give yourself permission to fail. Yes. Give yourself permission to make mistakes, give yourself permission to fail, and also make sure you take brain breaks throughout the day, about every 2.5, 3 hours. Get up, go for a walk, go wash the dishes, do the laundry, walk the dog, talk to your spouse, wander around the house, look at a workout video. Just do something completely different than what you're doing, and that will help you tremendously for multiple reasons. One, it'll help you be much more productive in the long term, because your productivity does go down over time. Your brain just can't simply task for hours and hours at a time. It's just not built to do that. So you need to give it a break, allow it to refocus and recharge, and then get back to it. You'll be a lot more productive and you'll be a lot more mentally centered. So that helps. So the other item and the final item on our list here is you are a product of your inputs. Big surprise. So you are what you listen to. And during this time in particularly, it is important for us to be aware of where we're getting our information from, because there are a lot of panic button pushers out there. And because there are a lot of panic button pushers out there, it will elevate your anxiety. And when you are in an elevated, anxious, fight or flight situation, what that does is it funnels all the energy to your physical being, elevates your cortisol, and most of us are aware of the ramifications of an elevated cortisol state for longer periods of time as far as health, but also for your mind, you're less able to focus because your energy is being directed to your physical being and not being directed to articulating and cognitive logical thought. Fight or flight is literally that. Your body wants to either fight or run away. That's it. So what can we do about that? Well, one, we want to become aware of your input. So during the day, what are you listening to? What are you watching? Are you listening to the panic button pushers who are showing you pictures of all the empty grocery store shelves and telling you the sky is falling? Again, there's a lot we don't know yet. So I recommend you go to sources, the official sources like the CDC or government sources like that to get your information. That will help control your anxiety quite a bit, because there's a lot of people who theorize, extrapolate, again, with little to no data. And when it comes to quote unquote news, oftentimes there is an agenda. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now, make your own opinion. when you go to official sources, make your own opinion. Don't be reliant upon other people's opinions, even if you respect them. And also, manage your inputs. Make sure that you take time for yourself to focus on things you enjoy as much as possible. If you have a hobby that you can focus on right now, now is a great time to do that. Watch a funny video, just unplug. So those brain breaks I mentioned earlier also fall in alignment with this. You definitely want to give yourself breaks and focus on things that take your mind off of the current situation and give you an outlet for your energy. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So let's do another poll here. So what changes can you start doing today to manage your emotions? So based on everything we talked about under VUCA, under emotional contagion, and under the fact we're a product of our inputs, what can we start doing? So let's see here, what changes can you make? And you should see that survey now. So go ahead and select all the answers that you want. This is an open choice survey. And let's see. Anybody not be able to see that? Nope, we have some votes. Okay, great. There might be a bit of a lag, so it's okay. Yeah, there sometimes is. Everybody is on the internet right now, and usually on channels that are not normally leveraged this heavily. So it's a challenge. And the fact that we even have internet that works is amazing. Can you imagine if this happened 35, 40 years ago? Yeah. So we have a lot to be thankful for. Okay, I'm going to end the voting and share the results. So we have 55% people answered, and we have some great answers. So top ones are take breaks during the day to refocus. That's great. And focus on what I can control rather than what I cannot. That's also a great idea. So those are wonderful. Thank you for responding. So these are things you can start doing tomorrow. Literally, this is not a 20-step program. There are things you can start doing tomorrow. So let's close that and get back to our presentation. All right. So part 2, let's discuss emotional awareness. And number 1, why the heck should we be aware of our emotions? Well, for one thing, our emotions are the gateway to our mindset. So when it comes to managing your mindset, if we just let our emotions run amok and do whatever they want to do and impact us instead of us controlling them to a certain degree, then it's very difficult to see positive results in your mindset. I hope that makes sense. So awareness is critical. And, 2, it's almost impossible to get results and affect change on something that you don't understand or you don't have a firm data point on, because you have no baseline, you have no target, you have no database goal, and you don't have any way to measure results. You don't have any feedback. You have no feedback mechanism. So for those of you who are continuous improvement specialists that are on this webinar right now, you may know what I'm talking about. Basically, this is the scoping phase, right? Those of you who are project managers or continuous improvement specialists, this is where you kind of understand what is the current state. If that makes sense. How are we doing in the chat box? Okay, we're still talking about connectivity. Sorry about that, guys. I wish I could wave a magic wand and make it all happen. So here's my client, Stephen Fine. He talks about, learning that working with me is all about improving self-awareness, and that is very, very true. And it's very important. And I've seen Steve, from when we first started working together till now, and I'm so stinking proud, it's not even funny. So self-awareness is extremely critical. And if you wonder why I was doing that, I have a gnat flying in my face. So what does awareness do for your mindset? Now we're going to get a little bit in the nitty-gritty right now. Okay, so basically, as you may be aware, your mindset is a collection of habitual thought patterns. Okay, literally a collection of habitual thought patterns. Well, how do you get thoughts? Well, basically, it's any repeated action, whether that's mental or physical, that is, again, repeated over time enough to enlarge a neural pathway. So there's a saying in neuroscience that neurons that fire together, wire together. And that is very true. And the more they fire together and the more they wire together, the more they strengthen that bond, and it becomes a very easy mode of energy conservancy for the brain to leverage the habit versus trying to create something new. It's like going on the interstate. Okay, so you have a choice. To get from point A to point B, you can either take I-10 and all 20 lanes or whatever it is, or you can like try to work through the back roads and go through a residential district and go through 14 stop signs. You get the picture. It takes longer. It might be more interesting. It might be less stressful depending on the time of day, but it's much more efficient to go down I-10. Same thing for your brain. Your brain has these thickened neural pathways that are our habits, and mindset is a habit, a habitual way of thinking. Basically, our habits are like an automatic response system. By and large, we don't have to think about it. They just happen. Okay. So what I would recommend is understanding, number one, that your habits aren't fixed. They're not fixed. Thanks to neuroplasticity, you can change your habits and therefore your mindset. Now, why should you want to do that? Well, to be oversimplistic about it, basically your mindset is the lens by which you filter all of your experiences in your life. What's interesting is it is also drives how you respond to said experiences. I'll give you an example. If you are expecting something to be bad, then your brain will be constantly looking for proof in that circumstance that that situation is bad. Sometimes and irregardless of logic and fact. I'll give you another example. So a long time ago, when I was a very young person, I had a boyfriend. I had more than one boyfriend, but this one particularly stood out in my mind because he had decided, he had a mindset that his girlfriends, regardless who they were going to leave him for another man. Right. So every time we were together, towards the end of our time together, whether it was day, night, we went out, didn't matter, he would pick an argument. He would pick a fight, convinced that I was going to leave him for another man. So, guess what? Do you think I put up with that for very long? What do you think in the chat box? You think I put up with that very long? Probably not. No. In fact, I got very tired of it very quickly. So in a way, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy. I did leave him, and eventually I found another man. So that is a good example of how his mindset drove his responses irregardless of logic because he was so convinced of this one particular thing. It was a habitual way of thinking. And a lot of people are like, no, I don't think you stayed with him. You're right. So somebody asked, is there anything we can do, eat, take to help with our plasticity? In fact, there is. I'm probably not going to get into that in this session, but I will give you a way to contact me. And I do have a Mindset Masterclass coming up. So by either method, you can email me or be a part of that masterclass, and we'll discuss that in more detail. So another poll, and this is the last poll, by the way, but it's it's lonely in here, and it's just me. So do you feel that you have the ideal mindset to achieve what you want out of your life and out of your career? So let's go to our poll. Let's start that poll. So you should see that in a moment here. So let me know, do you feel like you have the ideal mindset to achieve what you want out of your life and career? 22% have voted. We're going to 35%. I would have to say that most of us may not feel that way unless, what's interesting is we either feel 75% worse about ourselves or 75% greater. Depends. And sometimes they can be the same person. Okay, I'm going to end the voting here and share results. All right, so we're a little ahead on the yes, so we have some positive people in here. I like that. We have some abundance mindset people. Yay! All right, that's good to know. Okay, so I'm going to close that poll and go back to our presentation. And so what can you start doing today to make sure that you have the mindset you want and change your internal atmosphere? And that's why we're here actually this evening after all. So let's talk about how to manage your emotions and mindset. And guess what? This is not difficult. This is truly something that you can do very easily, 10, 15 minutes a day, maybe less. And I leverage this tool heavily, and I leverage it with all my clients. And what's also interesting is that with repetition, you will see drastic results. So this is what I call the emotional diagnostic tool. And at the end of our session, I'll give you a link that you can download this tool and my Managing Emotions and Mindset Guide as well. So I will give that link. I'll put it in our chat box here. So number one, what you want to do, and literally it's a log. You're logging your emotions. And there's a good reason for that, because over time, basically our mindset builds up systematic drift, okay? So over time, we tend to develop what's called cognitive bias. And what we don't do is we don't oftentimes challenge our cognitive bias. And in order to create a mindset that we want, we need to challenge that cognitive bias and remove any sort of distortion to come down to a more fact-based way of thinking, and also create a habit, a mindset, a habit of diagnostic thinking. So in other words, it's a habit of not accepting status quo and challenging our negative emotional responses. So it's very useful. So number one, what you want to do is you want to write down your situational response. So whatever that is, you want to write it down. What happened? What happened? How did you feel? And why did you feel that way? For example, a number of weeks ago when all this first started, my husband invited over a complete stranger to our house on a Sunday without letting me know first. Needless to say, I did not respond well to that. So I leveraged the tool and I wrote down what happened. How did I feel? I was really mad. And why did I feel that way? Well, because quite frankly, I multiple things were going on. Like there's a mixed emotion, right? And we can have those. I was angry because of his apparent lack of consideration. And I was also upset because of fear, because of the whole pandemic. I didn't know this person. I knew nothing about them. I didn't know if they traveled overseas. I knew nothing. I was not able to prepare myself. So the second step you want to do is write down your raw reaction. What was your initial reactive thoughts from that situation without any judgment and before you made an adjustment? Okay, do not judge yourself on your raw reactive thoughts, because my raw reactive thoughts of my husband inviting someone over without telling me first wasn't pleasant. So, oh, that's funny. Whereas only quality-minded people here. I love that. I love that. So it wasn't pleasant, but write it down. Do not judge yourself. And this is very important. Write it down with all the distortions, exactly the way you thought it, no matter how ugly it happened to be. And it's okay. So number three, what you want to do is you want to reframe. Look for cognitive distortions, look for any bias or cognitive drift, and clean up those raw thoughts and rewrite them based on facts. Okay, so some of the raw thoughts I had that I can share in public were that my husband was really inconsiderate and kind of a jerk. In actuality, he was not inconsiderate. He was not intentionally inconsiderate. He thought he was doing the right thing for his work colleague to invite them over. He thought he had communicated with me when he really didn't. Not obviously, anyway. So, but his intentions were good. So I had to rewrite those thoughts to be factual and remove the labeling and the negative distortions that I had. It's a very good way to let your bad thought and feeling out. Exactly. So what's interesting is in neuroplasticity, I'm just going over here to my notes, there is a very important methodology that you want to make sure that you name the emotion. So they talk about the power of raw emotions and how it's a gateway to our mindset. And so there's a couple of ways you can manage your emotions, and there's only really one or two that work well. One of the ways is to suppress the emotions. And actually that's the worst thing you can do, because it thickens the neural pathway unintentionally. So when you suppress emotions, not only does it create a lot of stress and could be, health concerns as well, but you're also cognitively enforcing a negative thought pattern unconsciously. So you really don't want to repress emotions. What you do want to do is you want to name them. And this is a way to be able to identify, name, and clarify and diagnose the emotion. And it also allows you to create new neural pathways. So you're leveraging your neuroplasticity here because you're challenging, you're reframing the mindset that is habitual for you. Now, science has proven that 20 or 30 repetitions of this, so let's just say you did this every day and you focus on the same type of mindset patterns, you will experience a change. It's proven, it is fact, you will experience a change. I've experienced a change. And what you do, let's just say that you are naturally, you respond to a certain situation with anger. Let's just say, for instance, if that is your natural go-to, and that's a base trait emotion for you, then by leveraging this tool, you can actually minimize and even mitigate that reaction altogether, naturally in a positive way. So this is a very, very powerful tool and deceptively simplistic. It is simple to apply, but it has deep impact. So some other things that you can do are to manage your emotions. And one of the things that doesn't work is control your environment. There are some things that you can do. You can set boundaries, so that's a positive thing. But by and large, we don't have that much finite control over our environment. So this is a way for us to manage what we can control, which is basically ourselves and our responses. All right, so what are some common distortions? So when you're looking at your thoughts and reframing, what are some common distortions you might run across? And you're probably familiar with a few of these, like all or nothing thinking. What happened once, therefore it happens all the time. I had a client like that once. Anyway, overgeneralization, magnification, labeling, i.e. cussing people out, jumping to conclusions, which is also called crystal ball gazing. So, making assumptions about the future, and we really don't have enough data to do that. Over responsibility, so taking responsibility for something we can't control. Like yesterday when my internet went out and there was 87 people left hanging on the other end of the webinar and I couldn't do anything about it. I could take responsibility for that, but I can't control Verizon. So anyway, so confusing preference with moral imperatives. Now this one is really interesting because when you read it, it doesn't make any sense. Well, let me give you an example. So people who drive slow in the left lane, it is our preference, unless it's a legal requirement, that they don't drive slow in the left lane. But when you have those people who are driving slow, like 50 miles an hour in the left lane, it drives you crazy. So you are probably labeling these people and making lots of generalizations about these people as well. But it's really, you're confusing a preference with a moral imperative, because like, how dare they get in the left lane and hold me up? Oh my God, they're just whatever. Well, really it's a preference, not a moral imperative. Well, this is a legal requirement. But anyway, so you get what I mean by that. And there's a little bit of lag on my end. So Kathleen mentions that self-awareness is a leadership competency and feedback is a good thing. And we don't grow unless we get feedback. So this is a way to give yourself feedback. As I mentioned before, it's almost impossible to affect change on something you don't understand because you do not have facts, you don't have a baseline, you don't have any metrics, you don't have any way to measure it, and you don't have any feedback. So you don't know if you're improving. But this methodology is very simple to apply, and you know right away that you're able to affect change. So research has shown, as I just mentioned, that diagnostic evaluation and reframing results significantly shifts our base trait personality, which is fascinating. In addition, something that I'm not going into a lot of detail in this particular webinar just because of time, is our ability to change also then leverages to change our mindset. And a very simple process to do that. But again, like I said, I'll give you a link in the chat box at the end of the presentation where you can actually copy that link and get my mindset guide with those tools, the emotional contagion, emotional response and diagnostic tool, as well as the mindset management tool. So the biggest thing that separates people, successful people, from those who are not successful is literally how they think. And I have, as a coach, have experienced this personally. I personally experienced this. In fact, in all my years of coaching, there has only been 2 people that I've not been able to help, and both of them suffered from extremely poor mindset challenges that needed therapy. And as a coach, I'm not a therapist. I do a lot, but I'm not a therapist. And that, really your mindset does drive your career and drives your life, to be honest. However, the challenge here is its real results are very difficult to achieve alone. And even myself, who I keep a journal and I do the emotional logging, I do all the things, if we don't have some sort of support group through this process of a mentor or a coach or a group or, friends or whatever that looks like, it's very difficult to stay the course. I'll give you an example. So I've been doing journaling for years, and I was doing so well at it, in fact, and having such a great time and so successful with it that I let it fall by the wayside. So what's interesting is not really necessarily when it doesn't work. It's really sometimes when it does work that we let it fall by the wayside. And so I let it fall by the wayside. And I started noticing that I was having a lot of difficulty with my mindset. I was having difficulty keeping a positive mindset and responding well to situations. I noticed that my moods were not what they used to be. And I was really frustrated because I didn't understand why. Then one day I realized I wasn't keeping my journal anymore. I was like, I picked up my journal and looked at the last entry. I was like, ooh, the last entry was like a year ago. But what was fascinating about that last entry was it literally predicted all the positive results that I'd experienced in my business and in my career, my life for that year. Literally. It was pretty eye-opening. But I said, okay, I'm starting journaling again. We're going to pick it back up. And I did. I started that week. I started journaling every night like I do right before bed. And in a week, I started noticing positive results. So it's helpful to have a group to keep you on track and to answer questions, that you might have, or, something, life challenges, and you get distracted. It's easy to get distracted. So with that in mind, I have created said group, and it's called the Mindset Masterclass. And it is free for the first 2 weeks. So I mean free, F-R-E-E, as in no charge, for the first 2 weeks. And those first 2 weeks are pivotal. So we will spin off what we talked about tonight, and we'll grow that concept and give you a little bit more nerdy detail and some more things to really sink your teeth into. So you can learn more about that at this link, which I will put in the chat box here in a moment. In fact, let me do that now. Let's see. And there you go. There it is. So I encourage you to join for the first 2 weeks. Enjoy the positive results of that. What is involved in the Mindset Masterclass in total? That is 6 group coaching calls. So this is not a DIY program. This is not here's a bunch of stuff, read it, and good luck. This is a guided coaching masterclass. Okay. Like I said, the first 2 weeks are free. I would love to have you join me. It's not for everybody, but if you're interested in growing your life, your career, and overcoming challenges, this is where we need to be. So 6 group coaching calls, tons of training videos. Actually, it's way more than 6 live training videos. I'll probably do 3 or 4 a week because I'm an overachiever. Bonus guides, tools, all support materials that you could possibly ever need. And some of those support materials, speaking of, let me go ahead and put up that link for you. Now, I want you to be able to download the materials that I talked about, so the mindset guide and the emotional log tool. So I want you to be able to download that. And here's that as well. So go ahead and go to Coaching Urban Mindset event at great.com and download that mindset tool and emotional log tool. That is free for you. That's no charge. You just get that because you're here. That's it. So I really want you to have that because it's so powerful. And I have an upcoming webinar if you know anybody who's looking to change their career, particularly during this disruptive time. So many people are being laid off, and it's really hard. It's a tough time, and we're going to have a very uncertain future. So one of the questions I get very commonly is, should I stop my job search? Absolutely not. In fact, now's a great time to get in front of people because I'll be honest with you, post-pandemic, companies who are accepting applications right now will not go back and reinvent the wheel. They'll just go back to the applications they've already vetted. So now is a good time to get in front of people, even if the job is on hold. you want to get in front of people. So if you're interested or you know someone that could benefit from this, please do put them in this direction, because it is a completely complimentary webinar, and I'll give this link in the chat box as well. There's no cost to join. I want to help people, and out of that webinar you'll get some very important guides as well that I'll give you to help develop your dossier. So I want to leave you with, before we open up the Q&A, that a major source of unhappiness in the world is people settling for what's passable versus what's possible. And my hope is for you, particularly from this time together we've had, that you will not settle for what's passable and reach for your potential. So let's do the Q&A. And this is my my contact information. I have a Facebook group as well. If you're not on Facebook, I totally understand. But the group is a lot of fun. We have a lot of engagement, and I post a lot of timely and relevant information in there, as well as live mini trainings, etc. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you haven't already, or reach out to me. That is my email. So coachyurban@upsolutions.net is my email. So feel free to reach out to me. So let's open up the questions. Now, if you have any questions at all, please put it in the chat, because now is the time for questions. We have about 10 more minutes left, 10, 15 minutes. So please do put some questions in the chat box. What questions do you have? I'm happy to answer. Anybody? Questions? So the text question and answer mode has been enabled. So, hi, Aaron, I really enjoyed this. Do you have a PowerPoint to share? I'm in fact sharing the whole video plus the PowerPoint. So yes, absolutely. Do you handwrite your journal or type it? You know, do whatever makes sense for you. I handwrite, and I'll tell you why. Because neuroscience has proven that if you write something down, it imprints more deeply into your brain versus typing it. So that's one reason, if you're trying to learn something, they encourage you to actually write it down. Now, when it comes to goal setting, I have a tidbit for you. If you write your goal down by hand and say it out loud, you're much more likely to accomplish it. Proven fact. Okay, you seem pretty upbeat. Do you have any bad day? Yes, yesterday was a terrible day. I was like, yeah, yesterday was awful. I'm not that upbeat all the time. No, I tell you what, I get a lot of energy from doing this. If any of you have ever seen me speak in person, I'm a pretty energetic speaker. I tend to bounce around all over the room. But I really love what I do, and I love adding value to people. So that makes me happy. Hopefully you understand that. But yeah, that's one reason why I'm bringing a lot of energy. And quite honestly, when it comes to this sort of thing, webinars are boring. So why would you want to have somebody who's going to be boring? Any tips to write a journal? I seem to write just points. That's great. Actually, jot before you journal. If you want to do a daily journal, don't write like a memoir every day, because that takes time. If you're time compressed, jot before you journal, and then once a week, like on Sunday or Saturday or whatever, doesn't matter, once a week, kind of compile it and think about the whole week, and that's when you actually do a little bit more writing. So you save a ton of time for that. Don't feel bad. Just, if you want to do bullet points, that's fine. Your journaling style is your journaling style. So let's see. I see you speak numerous times. Yeah, thank you. Let's see. I'm a big fan of cognitive behavior. I see you use it a bit. Is this your main approach to establishing mindset? So yes, cognitive behavior, cognitive reframing, that is a big part of my approach. Some of that is going into my book that I'll be launching this fall, and it's Elevate Your Career for More Impact and Income. So that is coming out. So a lot of that is around this type of topic. But yes, I leverage cognitive behavior coaching, neuroscience, behavioral science, as well as leadership psychology in my coaching. So that answers your question. How do you manage isolation? You seem to be an extrovert. I'm actually not. I'm an ambivert. So I'm dead in the middle. I'm neither an introvert or an extrovert. So I can play in both areas, but I can't be in one space very long. So I love people. I be around people. And then I'm like, I'm done with people for a while. But then if I'm like by myself for a while, I'm like, I need the people. So it's a balance. I'm right dead in the middle. If you are an introvert and you want a great book to read, I highly recommend the book Quiet by Susan Cain. That's Cain. It's a fantastic book. So if you're not an extrovert and you are an introvert and you want to know more about how to be a powerful introvert, that's your book. And it's called Quiet, the power of introverts in a world that can't stop talking. So, oh my, that's me. What is that term? Oops, I missed that one. I don't know what term you're talking about. Hey, type in what is that term again? Oh, ambivert. Sorry, yes, ambivert. A-M-B-I. Don't ask me to spell it. It starts with an A. It's an ambivert. And Susan Cain talks about it in her book called Quiet. She actually gives you a test. That's how I know. You are what you listen to. So Erin Urban avoids affecting her behavior from listening to that. Listening to what she does not want to listen to. Yeah, that's one way of putting it. My husband does that. If there's something he doesn't want to listen to, he just goes, huh? What? So you are what you listen to, quite literally, quite literally. So interestingly enough, even the music that you listen to, and this is research proven, affects your mind, affects your mindset. So yeah. So let's see. Any suggestions for fixing a pessimistic friend? Oh, you want to fix a friend, girl or guy? Keith. Sorry. Yeah. So here's the thing: we can't fix people unless they're ready for it. The only thing you can do is you can try to influence them. And one way to do that is when they're experiencing or inflicting their pessimism on you, you can go, well, give them a for instance story. I love the for instance stories. How some things work for you. Sometimes that gets through to them. Sometimes it doesn't. Although I will say I do have a story about that. And I have a friend and I love her dearly. We've been friends forever. And she used to be completely a neurotic mess, like hardcore. And after years and years and years and years and years and years of coaching, basically, she finally started turning around and she's very happy. I won't say, she's completely without her neuroticisms, but she's tons better and she's a very happy place. And I'm happy for her as well. So it does work. It's just, another thing, Keith, is hold space for yourself, because if you have a very pessimistic friend and you love them dearly, we tend to open our boundaries a little bit too much and it will drain you. So be careful about that. Let's see. I agree. Thanks. A great answer. So we are 5 more minutes or so being in the middle. Okay. Yeah. So I answered that question. Any other questions for me? So we got the Mindset Masterclass. Let me know if you wanted me to put those links up again. I'll email you those links just so you didn't have to remember it. That's a lot easier. And anything else for me before we wrap up? Because it's been a lot of fun. Let's see. Is a personality type assessment part of the links you sent? A personality type assessment, I do them. They aren't free though, but they are relatively inexpensive. So if you are interested in extended DISC personality type assessment, work style assessment, as well as it also does helps you align communication style with different personalities. It's a really comprehensive tool. I can send you a link to my page and you can take a look at it. And you might be able to figure out what type of personality you have from just the information there. But I'll send that to you. Yeah, I'll include that. No problem. Yeah, thanks. Fantastic presentation. It's been a pleasure, you guys. It's been a lot of fun. I hope to see some of you in the Mindset Masterclass, because I tell you what, I'm so excited about that. I am so excited. It's been a long time coming, and there's so much information that will help you guys just blow the lid off your potential. I'm really excited about that. Not a question, just thanks for spreading positive. And well, I try my best. But here's the thing. I tell people, you have 2 choices in life. You can get better or bitter. Which one do you want? Because your mindset drives your future. It truly does. The amount of impact your mindset has on your outcomes is astronomical. It really, really is. So this is all I have for you guys. It's been a deep pleasure. All of you stay safe and be well, and I'll speak to you soon.